This is Jeremy Zwinger at the Rice Trader, just summarizing the March 25th TRT report. In some ways, it's been a bit of a slow week, but in some ways, it's been some activity. We're going to start this week talking a little bit about Iraq. Iraq did offer a tender that goes all the way to the 31st. It's unclear where they're going to buy. There's a lot of hopes, especially in the U.S., that they're going to buy 60 to 90,000 tons. A lot of hopes in South America that they're going to buy off the new crop. Again, it's an interesting to talk about. It'll be very interesting next week what occurs. In addition to that, we have the key reports for the U.S. coming out next Friday, which will make our activities next Friday a little busy. Now, this is the prospective planting report, the end of March always, the rice stock report, and also we have an official data that we bring out for the U.S. that's a little goofed up just because of USDA's major issues and what they've had with the slowdown. So it definitely will be an active close to the week. Overall, what else are we seeing in the market? There's a lot of talk about El Nino, especially in the U.S., where it's pushing extreme wetness. And as we've often talked, this is the wetness that's especially concerning because it's the bottom of the solar cycle, the 11-year solar cycle, which usually brings a lot of wetness to our hemisphere and problems more in Asia. And so is this going to actually affect the reservoir levels? Is it going to actually affect production? Well, the current data says no. In fact, as we've stated USDA has definitely increased by far the global stocks of everything, global production of everything, a 5 million ton increase in the Indian crop. And so, there's a lot of concern, flooding in Nebraska, talks of wetness slowing trade. On the other hand, it's been quite a nice week in the Midwest for planting. And as I've said repeatedly, one has to remember, especially in the U.S. versus some of the less mechanized nations, the speed that they can put in a crop is just amazing. And this decreases the risk of weather so much that it's just not well understood and not studied very well how little time it takes for the U.S. Players now with this massive amount and huge equipment to put in a crop on massive, universal, and widespread level. In addition to that, what else are we seeing? Everybody's looking at the Philippines, trying to see how much they're going to buy, what are the details going to be with the red tape, and we find that another interesting piece as well to the overall direction. Of course, we are going to do the World Conference there on the November 11th to the 13th. It's a key time to kind of look there, and if nothing else, it's historic that the Philippines are opening up. It's going to be a very far difference from the first World Conference, which happened to also be in the Philippines 10, 11 years ago. And so it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out and just the activities of the whole country. What else are we seeing? We're seeing some activity in Egypt, throwing another tender out there. Very likely going to buy Viet or Chinese rice. And then you just kind of have the very old price shifts. And so I'm just going to share my screen here if everything goes right. So when I share my screen with our new program, you can kind of see what I'm seeing. And this is our new price summary. I like it because you can go down and look at the various difference in the prices and just see, what is the difference between a 5% in the U.S., which is quoted at 525, versus, the Philippines, which is 350 this week. Definitely major price differences. So I really like this new table. It allows us to go straight up and down. Obviously, in some of the specialties, not everybody has it, so we kind of use some of these columns to show a number of products. So overall pricing, in which we can show from this sheet or others, clearly Vietnam is by far the cheapest and very good quality. Thai has been up and down. It's been up a little bit this week where the Viets went down. And so you see a massive difference between Thai and Viet. In fact, Vietnam remains the cheapest origin. Even Cambodia, even Pakistan, Myanmar, the Viets are clearly trying to get sales early on. And if it's going to be this big production that some fear, that is a very smart move. So with that, I'm gonna move down to one of my other key tables I really enjoy. That kind of goes into this. So it asks the question of how is demand so far this year? And so, as you all know, I really, really appreciate and like this table because it quickly shows us all how we're doing in the year. And it's the conversion between estimated trade and conversion to actual trade. So when we update our official data, we do change this as we move forward. But you can see you have Thailand down by 50 or 12%. India is down a massive 20% on the year. Vietnam, even with these aggressive prices, is down 5.38%. Obviously, this has shifted in probably sales in the second quarter. I would expect Vietnam to be significantly up on the year as long as these price spreads continue. And Pakistan's actually had a very good year so far. They're probably going to be reluctant to trade as aggressively as they have in the first quarter. That's a lot of sales so far early in the year. In the U.S., as we stated last week, it's probably one of the key points. Exports were down by 19% in the year last year, which is just phenomenal and critical. While at the same time, imports were up 14%. Well, that would be a big issue, and you'd expect that with that there must be a change. Maybe it was a 1 year. But to see the U.S. still be dropping by at least 5% on data so far, estimated exports so far, this is a very, very big deal. So you're going from negative 19 to even worse, even a slower start. Definitely way far from 2017. And, you have to go all the way back to 2016 to have anything even close. So it's just not a very good start for the overall world trade, which goes into what we've said all year long. Supplies are just so large in all the majors that there's going to be a battle royal for sales, especially as these new crops come off. It's going to be a big fight. You're already seeing it with the Southern Hemisphere crops coming off. Brazil still has a very good crop, although it's down from the massive crop last year. Paraguay's got a 1 million ton crop. You definitely saw some reductions also in Uruguay and Argentina. But overall, there's a large amount of supplies that are going to come on the market, even from South America. And perhaps Iraq takes a good first swing at this, as it is a new crop, really South American Iraq trade. But very, very interesting for the week. With that, just let me show you some of the special sections, and I'm going to keep it a little shorter this week. I've been going on longer than I like. Again, as you all know, we have our major origin sections. I do also like to look at the prices. We go a little more in depth in their exact sessions to show what happened 1 year ago, 5 years ago. And it's critical to see some of these things. It is the Pakistan monthly update. And so, as you all know, when we have a major, have an update every month, we go much, much more in depth, and we show the graphs up to the data that we had, which just shows a very strong push in Pakistan so far this year. And much more detail. You go on the actual trade, you look at Chinese trade in this. I can't summarize it effectively in just a few minute summary video, but you can just see much, much more in depth as we take a snapshot. In addition to this, there was a Japan tender. I'm just going to show the U.S. graph really quick as it moved down. And we watch this very close, and we like to watch the parties that win, what the price was. And you can see that, they got the full amount this year in the U.S., which is a surprising price trend. If you look at the beginning of the year, usually you don't see this type of price movement where it started relatively high, fell to $100 a ton lower from $850 to $750. Then rebounded after it was clear that the Australian drought was going to really affect the crop. You would have surely seen, you see these $750 prices, it would have went down to the $600 range, below $700 in the $600 range. But it really, that Australian crop changed the whole direction as it became clear. But to get 23 vessels in a year like this with huge Viet supplies, huge Chinese supplies, it's just a testament to less Australian material that's going to be available on a lot of levels. So I like this graph a significant amount. We actually keep it several years and watch when the tender dates happen, when the shipping dates are as well, because it definitely affects price and movements. And just lastly, I'm just going to run to our fragrant rice special. We do this about once a quarter on fragrant, parboiled, glutinous, japonica, just to keep you guys up in the markets that specific clients follow. I know the report is big, and there's some talk, the rice trade is such a big report, there's so much data. Well, that's by design. And I always tell people, well, there's a reason why we do that. That's because we have so many different clients from so many different regions with so many different interests. And our team spends an exorbitant amount of time summarizing the pieces you might be interested in so that you can quickly get to what is useful to your group. And this is just an example. We know when there's a lot of our clients that are fragrant rice traders, and this gives them a real more in-depth review of that market where we really spend time to focus on the data. So, and again, there's also a Brazilian update that we just summarize, as you can see. But again, you can look at the prices for the fragrant. They've been a very interesting trend, from a down in the 2016 to definitely a rebound all the way till now. And it's very interesting. It's a very specialty market. The trade has been fascinating with this clear trend here, a move up to 5 million tons. It's just an interesting market in that it does at times stay close to the overall grain and rice complex, and sometimes does deviate quite significantly based upon the yearly trade. So with that, I think I've done a pretty good job of summarizing the key factors for this month or week. Excuse me, I'm trying to stop sharing. There you go. And hopefully these changes in the videos are helping all of you. I know you see my face less, which is good, and we show a little bit more data and we show a little more graphs. Our goal remains, as the world changes, to try to help you, try to do more summary in written material, because we know everybody's so busy. And it's also tough to get to the right data, to get to stuff that's useful. There's just so much out there. And we know the Rice Trader stuff is very useful, very helpful. And that's the reason we spend time doing summaries and doing this video after a long week of analysis, setting up conferences, talking to clients, and working on many things. We're just here to help all of you and try to unite the rice industry and to give you guys good information. So with that, it's another weekend. I look forward to seeing you all. I will soon be in Asia in about 6 weeks, and likely in the Hong Kong 100th anniversary as well. So hopefully we'll see all of our friends. And with that, this is Jeremy Zwinger signing off, and have a nice weekend.